get you to shine this light on it. Oh, crap. Look at that. Now you get a full appreciation for all those details. What about on that door handle up here?
Right above it.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably worn off by now, the other stuff. A little under it.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
Before we begin, let me tell you this is not a story for those who are seeking answers to questions they think they already know. No, this is a story about questions that ask harder questions. And for me, it started in the forest, and it ends in the forest. It's in the shadows of giant dug firs and sword fern-lined trails a simple question was asked. What goes around the bend? When I was a child in Pleasant Hill, Oregon, home to such things as berry fields, Ken Kesey's estate, and broken-down Chevys, I recall a certain midnight showing my father let me stay up and watch. It was a story of a witness who couldn't let go. I now know the movie to be Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The quote Richard Dreyfuss's character, Roy Neary, repeats is a mantra. This means something. That was the quote that carried me through my adolescence into teenage years and adulthood. I was and still am set apart from others based upon this question, what goes around the bend? This means something. Traditional science concludes where the real mystery begins. What's next? Without belaboring all the details of growing up as an only child with a single mother in the small broken-down town of Springfield, Oregon, yes, Bart Simpson's home, I can tell you my years have been blessed. I've become a father to a young man that defines my role as a proud dad. I've loved and lost, but who hasn't? I've set sail on the 7 seas as a Navy corpsman and chosen every job available after, from driving a semi to shooting x-rays to home health care in a haunted house. Now that was an interesting 4 weeks. I am what you call a vagabond, and moss don't gather very easily on the Johnson men. My father, who I truly only know the darker side of, is like this as well, a mover and a gypsy. So now you know enough for us to begin. You have your template of a personality somewhat, and the rest, well, is up to imagination. Our story begins in the realm of Sasquatch, only this isn't really a Sasquatch story. It's the true account of how Sasquatch led me deeper. By that I mean, in searching for a mere physical sighting, I came to know more about me and my fellow man. I came to know how small I was and how deep the infinite unknown really is. Sasquatch to me is a foundation to build off of. It sets typically a young man's imagination afire with adventure in the wild and hopes of being transformed in the process. This transformation for me happened over a period of 15 years and brought me to a small property in Cottage Grove, Oregon. It was at this property the Owl Moon Lab came to be. So here we go. But in order to leap through this layered history, we will chronologically hit on specific dates of my inquiry into the strange world of Sasquatch. I should tell you, upon initially looking into the subject, I was in a liminal state between two worlds, growing from one relationship to another. I suppose at times I saw the mystery as a way to cope with depression. Well, I took to it like a drug and sought out conventions, eyewitness testimonies, and recent sighting areas. However, my main focus was what I now call EESIs, translation, Extended Experiencers of Sasquatch Interaction. It is in seeking out people that in some cases quite literally had Sasquatch in their own backyard, a detail that will be hard for some of you to believe, but you ain't heard nothing yet. So with that, let us start 4 years after my son was born in the mill town of Thurston, Oregon. It's in Thurston I began to not only question this means something, but this means something else. 2008. On a cold February hike up to a place known as the Thurston Cliffs, my son found what appeared to be a human-sized barefooted track placed deep in the icy mud. The track was interesting enough that we both used the word Bigfoot to describe it and simply stuck a red whistle by it for scale. We then took a photo and finished our hike. Later that year, we showed this photo to a friend of the family who had prior spent years tracking and even making movies about Sasquatch. He thinks the photo is interesting enough to show a local witness who had an encounter not too far from where we found the track. I set a date to meet up with the witness and find out that he's not only a witness but a multiple witness. His stories stand out as either incredible or simply delusional. I soon find out that his personal experiences have led him to believe the mystery of Sasquatch is much stranger than people feel comfortable talking about. 2010. While balancing my schedule as a full-time student at the University of Oregon, I was also planning to host my first public conference on Sasquatch. The event would become successful enough that I immediately began to plan the next year's conference. However, I didn't want to wait that long to keep the stories coming. I approached a small pizza parlor near Vida, Oregon in search of a concept. The idea was simple. I fill up your restaurant with customers while Sasquatch testimonies are related over pizza and beer. It wasn't too long before we caught on and got local and national attention. 2011. I moved forward with my second conference, but decided to have a much more scaled down version in the woods. It is at this conference things began to change for me. When the audience was smaller and closer to the tree line, the encounter stories from the speakers and the questions from the audience just got stranger. 2012. Still going to school and working part-time in hospice care, I get a phone call regarding a possible trackway in the town of London, Oregon. I'm asked if I would like to cast these tracks and document them. I did with the assistance of several other people. The trackway still stands alone as a mystery, however disputed some claim them to be. It was also during this year I began to experience some of these stranger aspects of Sasquatch territory. Included in this are lights. Large lights, small lights, some bursting into the scene, some in full view while others phasing in and out of the forest. I seek counsel from the local Kalapuya Native Americans who are telling me that Sasquatch is a spirit being, part of this world and part of another. They play tricks on humans and have great power. I confirmed the oral history of their true nature by experiencing these puzzling powers firsthand. 2013. The first time I go public about one of these strange experiences is chronicled in Tom Powell's book, Edges of Science. He retells the story of some friends who had some strange experiences in the Three Sisters wilderness, such as a necklace being left on a boot, a hammock being shook leaving behind a oily handprint, barefooted tracks in the mud, and a very unique pair of shoes left in an odd place. Enter the term gifting, a way Sasquatch, in my opinion, invites you to become a familiar of sorts, an extended experiencer. 2017. During this 4-year gap, I'm finishing school, tending to some family health issues and revamping my Bigfoot and beer under the new podcast name Strange Brow Radio. I'm also engrossed in making a lifelike Sasquatch of my own. I spend months combing over the details from eyewitness testimony. Around the fall of that year, I'm contacted by now retired building contractor Daryl Adams. He informs me that he just moved up past London Road and had heard about the trackway found 5 years back, and was wondering if I ever come out this way to still look around. I assure him I do, and would love to talk to him sometime about the area.